There is a kind of confidence that looks impressive from the outside. It speaks clearly. It walks into rooms without hesitation. It makes decisions quickly. It seems unaffected by criticism. It appears certain. And because this is the version of confidence we notice most easily, many of us spend years believing that confidence is something visible, something other people can recognize in us, something that arrives when we become successful enough, attractive enough, experienced enough, wealthy enough, respected enough, or certain enough. But there is another kind of confidence. It does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it enters the room nervous. Sometimes it pauses before answering. Sometimes it admits, "I don't know." Sometimes it fails. Sometimes it changes its mind. Sometimes it walks away from opportunities other people would desperately chase. Sometimes it begins again after losing almost everything that once made life feel secure. This confidence does not always look powerful, but it is difficult to destroy because it was never built entirely from applause. Think about how easily external confidence can rise and fall. A manager praises your work, and suddenly you feel capable. Someone criticizes you the next day, and you begin questioning everything. A photograph receives compliments, and you feel attractive. Then you compare yourself with someone else, and the feeling disappears. You receive a promotion and feel successful. Months later, someone younger advances faster, and success suddenly feels insufficient. This happens because external validation can influence our emotions without necessarily creating inner stability. There is nothing wrong with encouragement. Human beings need it. A few sincere words can change someone's day. A good teacher can awaken potential. A supportive friend can help us see possibilities we had forgotten. A mentor can shorten the distance between confusion and clarity. But encouragement and confidence are not quite the same thing. Someone can tell you that you are capable, but they cannot create the memory of you doing something difficult. Someone can tell you that you are resilient, but they cannot go through disappointment on your behalf. Someone can remind you that you have value, but eventually you must decide whether your value survives moments when other people fail to recognize it. That is where deeper confidence begins. It begins when the question changes from, "Do other people believe in me?" to, "Can I rely on myself when things become uncertain?" That does not mean becoming emotionally independent from everyone. It means developing an inner structure strong enough that approval becomes encouragement rather than oxygen. Real confidence is not the belief that everything will work out exactly as planned. It is the belief that you can meet what happens next. It is not certainty about the future. It is trust in your ability to respond to the future. It is knowing that even if your voice shakes, you can still speak. Even if you fail, you can still learn. Even if someone says no, you can still continue. Even if life changes your plans, you can still rebuild. That kind of confidence is not handed to you. It is constructed slowly, through experience, through self-respect, through keeping promises to yourself, through learning, through boundaries, through uncertainty, through recovery, through becoming less interested in proving yourself and more interested in knowing yourself. Welcome to another journey with the hopeful narrator. Today, we are exploring the confidence that survives beyond praise, status, success, and certainty. The confidence nobody can give you. And to understand it, we first need to understand one of the great myths about confidence, the belief that we must feel confident before we begin. Confidence usually comes after the first step. Many people wait for confidence as though it were permission. They believe they will begin once fear has reduced. They will speak when they feel ready. They will apply when they believe they are good enough. They will start the business when uncertainty disappears. They will have the difficult conversation once they know exactly how it will unfold. But confidence rarely arrives first. Action usually arrives first. This is easy to see in almost every skill we learn. Nobody becomes confident driving a car by sitting in the passenger seat and imagining every possible road condition. Confidence develops because we drive, At first, we think about everything. Mirrors, speed, lane position, traffic, signals, turns. Then repetition slowly changes the experience. The unfamiliar becomes familiar. The difficult becomes manageable. The conscious becomes automatic. Confidence develops because reality provides evidence. The same principle applies far beyond physical skills. Consider a person beginning a new role at work. During the first weeks, even simple tasks can feel unusually demanding. Every meeting contains unfamiliar names. Every system seems more complicated than it probably is. Questions appear constantly. The person may wonder whether everyone else understands something they have somehow missed. Then time passes. They solve problems. They make mistakes. They ask questions. They learn how the organization really functions. 6 months later, many tasks that once created anxiety have become ordinary. What changed? Not personality, not intelligence, evidence. They now possess a history of coping. This is one of the foundations of durable confidence. Evidence changes how the mind predicts the future. Before experience, the mind says, "I don't know whether I can handle this." After repeated experience, it begins saying, "I've handled things like this before." That is a far more powerful statement than any motivational phrase. Daniel learned this when he spent years staying quiet in meetings. He was knowledgeable but hesitant. His ideas often remained in his notebook because he believed he needed to feel confident before contributing. Then one day, during a discussion about a reporting issue, his manager asked him directly whether he had a suggestion. Daniel did. His heart accelerated. His first few words came too quickly. Someone interrupted. Another person asked a question he could not answer immediately. Nothing catastrophic happened. The team continued discussing the problem. Part of Daniel's suggestion was eventually used. The important part of that day was not that his idea succeeded. The important part was that his nervousness and his competence were allowed to exist at the same time. That discovery matters. Confidence is often misunderstood as the absence of nervousness, but nervousness can simply mean the moment matters. A musician can feel nervous before performing despite years of experience. An executive can feel tension before an important presentation. An experienced doctor may still feel the seriousness of a difficult case. Confidence does not require the body to remain completely calm. It requires us not to interpret every physical sign of anxiety as proof that we are incapable. Perhaps you have experienced this yourself. Maybe before speaking, your heart beats faster. Maybe your mouth becomes dry. Maybe you temporarily lose a word. Then you conclude, "I'm not confident." But what if the more accurate interpretation is, "This matters to me, and my body knows it"? The goal is not always to remove the feeling. Sometimes the goal is to continue while carrying it. A surprising thing happens when we do this repeatedly. The feeling becomes less powerful, not because we fought it, because we stop treating it as a command. Each time you act despite discomfort, your brain receives new evidence. Fear predicted danger. You survived. Uncertainty predicted disaster. You managed. Embarrassment predicted rejection. Life continued. This is how confidence is built from the ground upward. Not by forcing yourself to believe something unsupported, by slowly giving yourself reasons to believe it. And that leads to something deeper than confidence. It leads to self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation beneath confidence. Imagine having a friend who constantly makes promises and rarely keeps them. They say they will call, they do not. They say they will arrive at 8, they arrive at 10. They promise to help, then disappear. At first, you may forgive them easily. Eventually, something changes. You may still like them, but you stop trusting their words. A similar process can happen within ourselves. We make promises privately. Tomorrow I will begin. This week I will finally do it. I will stop avoiding that conversation. I will take care of my health. I will work on that idea. I will study. I will save. I will practice. Then we break these promises repeatedly. Not because we are bad people, because human beings are excellent negotiators when the only person affected seems to be ourselves. Eventually, however, the mind remembers. When we announce another goal internally, another voice answers, "You said this last time." This is why self-trust matters so much. Confidence is partly your mind's estimate of whether you can rely on yourself. Not whether you will be perfect, whether you will show up. Maya discovered this after years of ambitious plans that rarely lasted. She would redesign her whole life on Sunday evening. Exercise every morning, eat perfectly, save more, read daily, start a business. Reduce screen time, sleep earlier. The plan looked wonderful. By Thursday, most of it had collapsed. Then she would feel disappointed not only because the habits failed, but because she no longer believed herself. Eventually, she changed her approach. Instead of demanding a complete transformation, she made one small commitment. Twice a week, she would spend 20 minutes developing her business idea. That was all. 20 minutes was too small to impress anyone. But that was exactly why it worked. The purpose was not productivity alone. The purpose was rebuilding credibility with herself. She kept the promise, then kept it again. After several months, something subtle changed. When Maya told herself she would do something, she no longer automatically doubted it. She had accumulated proof. This is an important psychological shift. Large goals often depend on emotional intensity. Small, consistent actions depend more on identity. You begin becoming a person who follows through. Confidence then starts developing almost as a side effect. You do not need to repeatedly tell yourself, "I am disciplined." You remember the mornings you showed up. You do not need to say, "I am brave." You remember the difficult conversation you eventually faced. You do not need to say, "I can learn." You remember being confused at first and competent later. Real confidence often sounds less dramatic than we imagine. It sounds like, "I've done difficult things before. I've been wrong before and recovered. I've had bad days and continued. I've learned things that once felt impossible. I can probably learn this too." This is why small promises matter. They may seem unrelated to confidence, but each kept promise strengthens the relationship you have with yourself. And that relationship becomes essential when things go wrong. Because no confidence can survive for long if every mistake becomes evidence that you are fundamentally inadequate. Confidence requires a healthier relationship with mistakes. There are people who appear capable from the outside, but privately feel one mistake away from being exposed. They may be experienced, educated, reliable, accomplished. Yet every error feels dangerous. A mistake in an email becomes proof that they are careless. Forgetting a point in a presentation becomes proof that they are poor speakers. Being corrected becomes humiliation. Not knowing an answer becomes incompetence. The problem is not the mistake itself. It is the meaning attached to it. When every error becomes identity, confidence becomes fragile. You can only feel capable on days when nothing goes wrong. That is an impossible standard. Human beings learn through error. Children demonstrate this naturally. A toddler does not fall while learning to walk and conclude that walking is not part of their personality. They fall and attempt again. Adults often become more complicated. We attach social meaning to mistakes. We worry about how they look. This is why perfectionism can resemble high standards while quietly damaging confidence. High standards say, "I want to do this well." Perfectionism often says, "If I do this imperfectly, something is wrong with me." Those are very different beliefs. Elena learned this during her first year in a new company. She desperately wanted to prove she deserved the role. Before sending even ordinary emails, she reread them several times. During one presentation, a colleague pointed out that one chart contained an incorrect label. It was a minor issue. Elena corrected it. The meeting continued. Yet for the rest of the day, she could think about little else. What fascinated her later was how completely the error had erased everything else. She had explained important findings. A recommendation had been accepted. Another team had requested her analysis. But psychologically, one mistake had become larger than 20 things she had done well. This tendency is common. The mind gives threatening information priority. It is part of why one negative comment can sometimes feel heavier than 10 compliments. Confidence requires learning to place negative evidence in proportion. Not deny it, proportion it. If you made an error, then an error occurred. That is factual. But I am a failure is not a fact. It is an interpretation. A more useful question is, what does this teach me? That question turns mistakes into data. Did you rush? Prepare differently next time. Did you misunderstand? Ask better questions. Did you lack skill? Practice. Did you hurt someone? Apologize. Did you make a poor decision? Understand why. Then continue. This is a stronger relationship with mistakes because it combines accountability with self-respect. You do not excuse everything, but you also do not destroy your confidence in the name of improvement. Perhaps you still remember something embarrassing from years ago. A wrong answer in class, a badly handled conversation, a presentation where your mind went blank, a social moment you wish you could replay. It may feel vivid because you were there. Other people may barely remember it. Sometimes the confidence we lack today is being held hostage by a moment everyone else has already forgotten. There is wisdom in allowing an old version of yourself to be imperfect. You are learning. You still are. And learning becomes much easier when we stop comparing our unfinished selves with other people's strongest moments. Comparison can make a good life. Feel inadequate. There is an unusual experience many people have had. They can feel reasonably satisfied with their lives, open a social media app, spend 10 minutes looking at other people, and emerge feeling unsuccessful. Nothing in their actual life changed. Their home is the same, their relationships are the same, their abilities are the same, their financial situation is the same. Yet emotionally, the measurement changed. Comparison has always been part of human life. We evaluate our position partly by observing others, but modern life has multiplied the number of people available for comparison. A person living an ordinary life can now compare themselves with hundreds of exceptional people before breakfast. Someone wealthier, someone fitter, someone more successful, someone traveling, someone celebrating an anniversary, someone launching a company, someone buying a house, someone apparently mastering parenting, career, exercise, friendship, nutrition, and personal fulfillment simultaneously. The difficulty is that we rarely compare complete realities. We compare selected evidence. Our private uncertainty against someone's public achievement, our ordinary day against their celebration, our financial worries against their visible purchase, our first attempt against their polished result. This produces a distorted conclusion. Marcus experienced this strongly in his late 30s. By most reasonable standards, life was going well. He had stable work, a family he cared about, a home, friends, responsibilities. But he repeatedly encountered former classmates who appeared further ahead professionally. One had become an executive, another had started a company, another seemed to travel constantly. Marcus began feeling that he had somehow missed a race he did not remember entering. Then one evening he found an old notebook from 10 years earlier. In it, he had written several goals: secure stable work, become more financially responsible, build a family life, feel more confident speaking at work. Reading the list surprised him. Many things he now considered ordinary had once been deeply important goals. He had not stopped progressing. He had simply stopped noticing progress once it became normal. This is another challenge with confidence. Achievements often lose emotional power quickly. We adapt. Yesterday's dream becomes today's baseline. Then we raise the standard. There is nothing wrong with aspiration. Growth is healthy. But if confidence depends on always being ahead of someone else, peace becomes impossible. There will always be someone further ahead in some area. This is why internal measurements matter. Are you becoming more capable? Are you handling things better than you used to? Have you learned from previous mistakes? Do you make decisions with greater clarity? Are you building the kind of life that matters to you? These questions bring confidence back onto your own ground. They also make admiration healthier. You can appreciate another person's success without interpreting it as evidence against yourself. Someone else's achievement does not reduce the amount of possibility available to you. Their path and your path can coexist. This becomes particularly important when you experience rejection, because comparison may tell you that someone else was chosen. Confidence determines what meaning you attach to that fact. Rejection hurts, most when we turn it into identity. Rejection is difficult, partly because it feels personal even when many factors are involved. You apply for a role and another candidate is selected. You submit an idea and it is declined. You express interest in someone and the feeling is not returned. You build something and people do not respond. A client chooses someone else. A university rejects an application. A person you respect does not see what you hoped they would see. The event itself may last seconds. The story we create afterward can last years. Nina experienced this after applying for a leadership role. She had prepared carefully. The interview seemed positive. She believed she had a real chance. Then came the email. Another candidate had been selected. Initially, Nina felt disappointed. Then disappointment turned into interpretation. Maybe I am not leadership material. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought. Maybe I should stop trying for these roles. Notice the movement. An external decision became an internal identity. This happens easily because the human mind wants explanations. Uncertainty feels uncomfortable. If we are rejected, we want to know why. When information is missing, the mind fills the gap, and anxious minds rarely choose flattering explanations. But rejection is almost never a complete assessment of a human being. It occurs within context. Timing, competition, preferences, needs, experience, budgets, relationships, chance. Sometimes the rejection contains useful information. In Nina's case, she requested feedback and learned that the selected candidate had managed a much larger team. That was specific. She could work with specific information. Over the following year, Nina took opportunities to lead internal projects and gained more experience. Eventually, she successfully moved into leadership. But something more valuable happened before that second opportunity. She learned that rejection can disappoint her without defining her. This is central to inner confidence. External confidence asks, did they choose me? Internal confidence eventually asks, what can I learn and what do I choose next? This is not pretending rejection does not matter. It matters. Human beings naturally care about acceptance. We care whether people want us, value us, hire us, invite us, approve of us. The goal is not emotional numbness. The goal is proportion. A no can mean not now, not here, not this role, not this relationship, not this approach, not with these conditions. Sometimes it does mean you need to improve. That too is survivable. What it does not automatically mean is not worthy, not capable, not valuable. Never. Confidence becomes stronger when you stop allowing temporary decisions to become permanent identities. And perhaps one of the best ways to learn this is through failure itself. Because failure has a strange ability to teach lessons success cannot. Failure can strengthen confidence, instead of destroying it. At first, this sounds contradictory. How could failure create confidence? Does confidence not come from success? Sometimes. Success certainly helps. When something works, We receive evidence that our effort and ability can produce results. But failure offers a different kind of evidence. It teaches whether we can recover. And the ability to recover may matter more over a lifetime than the ability to avoid every setback. Imagine someone who has succeeded every time they attempted something difficult. Their confidence may appear strong, but somewhere underneath there may still be a question. What happens if I fail? Now imagine someone who has failed several times, experienced disappointment, reflected, changed, and continued. That person already knows part of the answer. Failure hurts, but it is survivable. This reduces fear. Thomas learned this while training for his first marathon. He prepared for months. On race day, he became excited and started too quickly. For the first half, he felt excellent. Later, his body began paying for the early pace. His legs tightened. His energy disappeared. Eventually, he was forced to stop. He had imagined crossing the finish line. Instead, he sat beside the course while strangers continued running past. For weeks, he felt embarrassed. Then he began examining what happened. His failure was not random. He had ignored his pacing plan because excitement overruled discipline. He had treated feeling good early as permission to abandon strategy. The lesson extended far beyond running. Enthusiasm is not always wisdom. Energy needs management. A strong beginning means little if it destroys the ability to finish. The following year, Thomas returned. This time, he ran more patiently. He completed the race. Yet when he later spoke about the experience, the most important part was not the medal. It was returning. Returning after embarrassment changes a person. You discover that your identity does not need to remain attached to your worst result. This principle appears throughout history and achievement. Scientific progress is full of experiments that failed to confirm expectations. Business innovation is full of products that did not work. Athletic careers contain losses. Creative careers contain rejection. The people who eventually become resilient are not necessarily those who fail less. Often, they become better at extracting information from failure without surrendering identity to it. That skill creates a powerful form of confidence. You stop needing everything to work perfectly the first time. This changes how you approach risk. You can attempt more. Learn faster. Experiment. Because you are no longer asking every effort to prove your worth. You're asking it to teach you something. There is a quiet lesson hidden here. Sometimes confidence does not mean believing, I will succeed. Sometimes it means believing, if I fail, I will know what to do next. That is harder to take away. And once you develop this kind of inner stability, you become less dependent on other people's permission. Advice is useful, but permission is dangerous. Many important decisions create uncertainty. So we ask people, should I take this job? Should I start this business? Should I move? Should I study this? Should I stay? Should I leave? Should I apply? Should I wait? Advice is valuable. Other people can see things we cannot. Someone with experience may identify risks we have missed. A trusted friend may recognize patterns we are too emotionally involved to see. But there is a difference between seeking perspective and surrendering responsibility. Priya discovered this while considering a small catering business. She enjoyed cooking. Friends frequently asked whether she accepted orders. She wanted to try the idea on weekends while keeping her full-time job. Before beginning, she asked almost everyone she knew. One person warned her that food businesses fail. Another told her she should immediately quit her job and go all in. A relative said business was too risky. A friend said she would regret not trying. The more advice Priya collected, the more confused she became. Eventually, she noticed that each person was answering a slightly different question. The cautious relative was answering from fear of financial instability. The entrepreneurial friend was answering from excitement about opportunity. Someone who had previously failed in business was answering from painful memory. Their answers contained pieces of wisdom, but none could decide for Priya. She changed the way she asked for advice. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" she spoke with people who understood the industry and asked, "What costs are easy to underestimate? What mistakes do beginners make? How do people find customers? What would you test before investing heavily?" These questions produced information. Then Priya made the decision herself. This is a mature relationship with advice. Confidence is not refusing guidance. It is being able to receive guidance without abandoning your own judgment. This matters because no major decision will receive unanimous approval. If you wait until everyone agrees, you may wait forever. Every meaningful path looks unreasonable to someone. A safe job looks limiting to one person and responsible to another. Starting a business looks courageous to one person and reckless to another. Moving countries looks adventurous to one person and unnecessarily difficult to another. Staying close to family looks beautiful to one person and unambitious to another. The same choice changes, meaning depending on the observer, which is why confidence eventually requires clarity about what matters to you. Without that clarity, the loudest opinion often wins. Confidence becomes stronger when your values become clear. Many people spend significant parts of their lives trying to succeed without ever defining success. They inherit definitions: money, status, promotion, recognition, a certain lifestyle, a certain kind of house, a certain kind of career. None of these are inherently wrong. Money can create security. Achievement can be meaningful. Recognition can be rewarding. The problem begins when we pursue something mainly because it makes us look successful rather than because it supports a life we actually want. Samuel lived this way for years. He made career decisions partly according to how impressive the job title sounded. He spent more than he wanted because certain possessions made him feel successful. He attended events because people with status were there. He constantly evaluated how his life appeared from outside. Then his father became seriously ill. Long hospital visits and quiet family evenings shifted Samuel's attention. Suddenly, certain questions became harder to avoid. What did he actually value? Not what looked impressive. What mattered? The answers were simpler than he expected. Time with family, health, financial stability, useful work, freedom, a few close relationships, enough ambition to keep growing without sacrificing everything else. Samuel did not stop caring about his career. He became more selective about what he wanted his career to provide. That clarity changed his confidence. He became less afraid of making choices other people did not understand. At one point, he turned down a role with a stronger title because the lifestyle attached to it did not fit his priorities. Years earlier, he would have worried that people would think he lacked ambition. Now he knew what he was choosing. Values create psychological stability because they provide an internal reference point. Without them, every environment can redefine you. Around wealthy people, you feel poor. Around highly educated people, you feel unintelligent. Around attractive people, you feel unattractive. Around highly productive people, you feel lazy. Around ambitious people, you feel insufficiently driven. But when you know what matters, you can admire other lives without needing to copy them. You can say, "That is impressive, but it is not what I want." Or, "That person's achievement inspires me, but my path may look different." This does not make you less ambitious. It makes your ambition more deliberate. Confidence grows when the life you are building begins to resemble your own values rather than the expectations you absorbed from everyone around you. And once you know what matters, something else becomes easier. You become willing to look inexperienced while learning what matters to you. The willingness to be a beginner is a form of confidence. One of adulthood's quiet tragedies is how many things people stop themselves from learning because they do not want to look bad at the beginning. Children expect to be beginners. They fall, ask basic questions, make strange sounds while learning language, draw badly, miss the ball. They improve because being inexperienced does not surprise them. Adults often expect something different. We want to learn without appearing ignorant. Speak without making mistakes. Exercise without looking unfit. Dance without appearing awkward. Start a business without making beginner errors. Become leaders without ever looking uncertain. This is impossible. Every skill has an awkward stage. Grace had avoided painting for decades because she believed she lacked artistic ability. The belief began when she was young and someone laughed at one of her drawings. A small moment became a permanent label. I can't draw. At 51, she entered a community art class. Her first attempt was not good. She painted a bowl that looked almost nothing like a bowl. And for perhaps the first time, she found that amusing instead of humiliating. She allowed herself to be bad. That changed the experience. Week by week she improved. She learned about light, proportion, color, observation. More importantly, she discovered how many abilities we never develop because we expect competence before practice. Confidence is not pretending to know what you do not know. It is being secure enough to say, I am learning. There is strength in that sentence. It removes the pressure to perform expertise. This matters professionally, too. Some people remain stuck because they are afraid to ask questions that might reveal gaps in knowledge. Ironically, the people who ask may progress faster. The person who protects the appearance of competence can remain less competent. The person willing to expose temporary ignorance has the opportunity to learn. This is true with language, technology, leadership, financial knowledge, communication, parenting, relationships, almost everything. There is no age at which learning becomes shameful. There is only a point at which ego sometimes makes learning uncomfortable. Perhaps there is something you have wanted to learn for years. A language, a skill, a sport, a subject. Maybe what stands between you and the beginning is not inability. Maybe it is the fear of being seen before you become good. That fear can quietly steal years. You do not need confidence to skip the beginner stage. You need confidence to survive it, and surviving it often reveals that confidence does not need to be loud. Confidence has nothing to do with being the loudest person in the room. There is a stereotype attached to confidence. Strong voice, quick answers, eye contact, visible energy, social ease, leadership, presence. These qualities can accompany confidence, but they are not confidence itself. Leah spent years believing they were. She was naturally quiet. In meetings, she preferred listening before speaking. She disliked interrupting. She took time to formulate her thoughts. Because louder colleagues were often perceived as confident, Leah concluded that her temperament was a weakness. She tried to compensate. She spoke more quickly, forced herself to contribute constantly, filled silences. The result was not confidence. It was exhaustion. Then she worked with a senior leader named Helen. Helen was also quiet. She listened carefully. She did not compete for every second of conversation, but when she spoke, she was clear. If she disagreed, she explained why. If she did not know, she said so. If she needed time, she took it. Leah gradually realized that confidence was not about speaking more. It was about speaking without apologizing for existing. This distinction matters. Introversion is not insecurity. Extroversion is not confidence. Someone can be highly social and deeply dependent on approval. Someone else can be quiet and internally secure. A confident person does not necessarily dominate a room. They are simply less likely to disappear from themselves inside it. That may mean speaking once instead of 10 times, but speaking clearly. It may mean asking a question without beginning with, "Sorry, this might be a stupid question." It may mean allowing silence after making a point rather than immediately weakening it. It may mean admitting uncertainty without embarrassment. It may mean letting another person disagree without feeling personally diminished. Confidence becomes much easier when you stop trying to copy its appearance. Perhaps you have an image in your mind of what a confident person should sound like. Maybe faster, more outgoing, more charismatic, more humorous, more assertive. But your version of confidence may be different. Calm, prepared, thoughtful, measured, warm, quiet, direct. The goal is not to imitate confidence. It is to become less afraid of being yourself. And sometimes the clearest evidence of that is how you behave in uncomfortable moments. Avoiding discomfort can slowly weaken confidence. Human beings naturally seek comfort. This is not a flaw. Comfort signals safety. But a life organized entirely around avoiding discomfort becomes smaller. You avoid difficult conversations, avoid saying no, avoid asking questions, avoid meeting new people, avoid applying for opportunities, avoid admitting mistakes, avoid starting something unfamiliar. Each act of avoidance brings relief. That relief can be powerful. You decide not to speak in the meeting. Immediately, anxiety decreases. You avoid the conversation. Relief. You do not submit the application. Relief. The brain learns. Avoidance works. In the short term, it does. But over time, another lesson may form. I cannot handle this. This is how avoidance can quietly erode confidence. Owen discovered this through conflict. He was known as easygoing. But beneath that identity was a strong fear of confrontation. If someone treated him unfairly, he often remained silent. At work, a colleague repeatedly took credit for tasks Owen had completed. At first, Owen told himself it was not worth making an issue of it. Then it happened again. Eventually, he arranged a conversation. Beforehand, he felt physically uncomfortable. His mind imagined every possible negative outcome. The actual conversation was tense. The colleague became defensive. Owen stayed calm and explained the issue. Nothing dramatic happened. The behavior improved, but the most important change occurred inside Owen. He learned that discomfort is not the same as danger. This is one of the most liberating distinctions we can learn. Anxiety often feels urgent, but feeling uncomfortable does not automatically mean something is unsafe. Your heart can race while you do something healthy. You can feel guilty while setting a necessary boundary. You can feel nervous while taking a useful opportunity. You can feel awkward while learning. The body is allowed to be uncomfortable. Confidence grows when discomfort stops automatically controlling behavior. Perhaps you remember a conversation you dreaded for days. Then you finally had it. Maybe it was not pleasant, but afterward, you realized you had spent more emotional energy imagining it than actually experiencing it. That is common. We sometimes suffer twice, first through imagination, then through reality. Confidence is not eliminating the first reaction, it is reducing its authority. You learn, I can feel this and still act. That sentence applies to fear, embarrassment, uncertainty, nervousness, even sadness. Emotional courage is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain guided by values while emotion is present. And for that to happen consistently, the voice inside your mind becomes extremely important. The way you speak to yourself shapes the confidence you carry. There is someone you will spend your entire life with. You. You hear your own thoughts during failure. Success, embarrassment, loneliness, achievement, uncertainty. If that inner voice constantly humiliates you, confidence has nowhere stable to grow. Rachel did not realize how harsh her internal language had become. After small mistakes, how could you be so stupid? Before presentations, you're going to mess this up. After difficult conversations, why did you say that? When nervous, why can't you just be normal? She thought this harshness created discipline. But discipline and contempt are not the same thing. A coach can be demanding without being abusive. A teacher can correct without humiliating. You can hold yourself accountable without turning every weakness into a personal attack. The goal is not exaggerated positivity. Telling yourself, "I am amazing at everything," does not create meaningful confidence when experience clearly disagrees. Useful self-talk is accurate, instead of, "I always fail." Accurate language says, "This attempt failed," instead of, "I am terrible at presentations." It says, "I need more practice presenting," instead of, "Everyone thinks I am incompetent." It asks, "What evidence do I actually have?" Words matter because they influence identity. "I failed" describes an event. "I am a failure" describes a person. One allows movement, the other creates a prison. Rachel began listening for extreme language in her mind. Always, never, everyone, nothing. These words often appear during anxiety. She replaced them with more precise language. At first, it felt unnatural. Eventually, her internal world became less hostile. She still made mistakes, but she no longer added unnecessary suffering afterward. This created a form of confidence that external praise had never produced. She trusted that even when something went wrong, she would not abandon herself. That is powerful. Imagine knowing, "If I fail, I will be disappointed, but I will not destroy myself. If I make a mistake, I will correct it. If someone rejects me, I will hurt, but I will not convert their decision into my identity." This is emotional self-trust. And emotional self-trust helps us do something many people find surprisingly difficult. It helps us set boundaries. Every healthy boundary sends a message to yourself. Confidence is often associated with moving toward things, taking opportunities, speaking, leading, beginning. But some of the deepest confidence appears when we decide what we will no longer accept. Adrian was the person everyone could rely on. At work, he said yes frequently. Extra hours, urgent tasks, weekend help, last-minute requests. People appreciated him. But Adrian eventually realized that many of his yeses were not generosity. They were fear. He was afraid people would think less of him if he refused. This happens often. We call it kindness, flexibility, being helpful. Sometimes it is. But sometimes excessive agreement hides insecurity. We say yes because no feels dangerous. Then resentment appears. Why do people expect so much from me? Sometimes because we have taught them that our boundaries are always negotiable. Adrian experienced a turning point when his daughter had a school performance. He had promised to attend. Late that afternoon, someone asked him to stay and help finish work that could reasonably wait until morning. Adrian almost agreed automatically. Then he stopped. "I can't tonight. I have a family commitment. I can help tomorrow morning." The colleague was disappointed. Adrian felt guilty. Then he left. The world continued. That small experience changed something. He learned that another person's disappointment was uncomfortable but survivable. This is important because people with weak boundaries often feel responsible for preventing all negative emotions in others. If someone is disappointed, they feel they have done something wrong. If someone is annoyed, they rush to fix it. If someone disagrees, they question themselves immediately. Healthy confidence allows another person to have a reaction without assuming that reaction is a verdict. You can be kind and still say no. You can care about someone and still disagree. You can protect your time without producing a 10-minute explanation. You can change your mind. You can leave situations that repeatedly violate your values. Each boundary communicates something inwardly. My time matters. My energy matters. My needs also exist. My values deserve protection. This does not mean becoming rigid or selfish. Relationships require compromise. Work requires flexibility. Families require sacrifice. The question is whether sacrifice is chosen or chronically demanded by fear. A confident yes is generous. A fearful yes can slowly become resentment. This is why boundaries and confidence are deeply connected. Each time you respect a reasonable boundary, You strengthen self-respect, and self-respect becomes essential when life changes the roles through which you once understood yourself. Your identity must be larger than your current role. Many people build confidence around something external: a career, a relationship, parenthood, physical appearance, status, a business, a skill. There is nothing wrong with taking pride in these things. The danger appears when one role becomes the whole identity. David understood this after more than 20 years as an engineer. His work was not merely what he did, it was how he introduced himself, how others understood him, how he understood himself. Then his company restructured, his position disappeared. The financial uncertainty was stressful. But another problem surprised him. Without the role, he felt smaller. He avoided social events because he disliked answering the question, "What are you doing now?" This reveals how strongly confidence can become attached to labels. Job titles provide structure. Relationships provide identity. Social roles tell us where we belong. When they change, we can temporarily lose our psychological map. David eventually began consulting. He also volunteered with young engineering students. Slowly, he recognized that many qualities he had attributed to his position actually belonged to him: patience, problem-solving, responsibility, curiosity. The company had given these qualities a place to operate. It had not created them. This distinction helped rebuild David's confidence. Roles change. Qualities can travel. This is particularly important during transitions. Retirement, career change, migration, children leaving home, relationship changes, illness, business failure. These periods can feel destabilizing because the old identity no longer fits and the new one has not fully formed. Confidence in these moments means becoming curious about who you are beyond the familiar role. Perhaps instead of saying only, "I am a manager," you can also recognize, "I solve problems. I help people develop. I learn quickly. I create order. I communicate. I adapt." These qualities are portable. A job can disappear. Your ability to learn remains. A title can change. Your experience remains. A relationship can end. Your ability to love, reflect, and grow remains. Confidence becomes more resilient when identity contains multiple layers. You are not one role. You are a person moving through roles. And this becomes even stronger when confidence is supported by competence. Sometimes, the best way to feel more confident is to become more prepared. There is a version of confidence advice that focuses almost entirely on mindset. Believe in yourself. Think positively. Visualize success. These ideas can help. But sometimes, low confidence is giving useful feedback. Sometimes, you are nervous because you are underprepared. In those situations, the answer is not to silence the feeling. It is to prepare. Aisha learned this when she was asked to present a project to senior leaders. Public speaking made her anxious. Her first thought was, "I need to become more confident." Then she realized that confidence was not something she could command directly. Preparation was. She studied the numbers, simplified the presentation, practiced explaining each major point without looking at the slides, anticipated likely questions, recorded herself speaking. She noticed that anxiety made her talk too quickly, so she practiced pausing. When presentation day arrived, Aisha was still nervous. Preparation did not magically erase biology. But underneath the nervousness was competence. She knew the subject. This changed the meaning of the anxiety. Instead of, "I am nervous because I am incapable," it became, "I am nervous because this matters." There is enormous wisdom in this distinction. Confidence becomes more reliable when backed by skill. An athlete trains, a musician practices, a pilot uses simulations, a surgeon studies and repeats procedures under supervision. Professionals develop expertise through repetition. From the outside, we see performance. We do not always see preparation. That can distort comparison. You may watch someone speak naturally and assume they were born confident. Perhaps they have delivered hundreds of presentations. You may watch someone negotiate calmly. Perhaps they have handled years of difficult conversations. You may see someone make quick decisions. Perhaps they possess deep experience in the subject. Competence often looks like confidence, and competence can be developed. This is encouraging because feelings are difficult to command directly. Skill is more concrete. You can practice, learn, rehearse, ask for feedback, study, prepare. Each repetition reduces uncertainty. This does not mean you must become perfect before acting. There is a balance. Too little preparation creates avoidable anxiety. Too much preparation can become disguised avoidance. At some point, you must enter reality. The deeper principle is simple. Prepare enough that you respect the task. Then accept that uncertainty remains. Because eventually, every important decision requires us to move without knowing exactly how things will end. Real confidence includes uncertainty. Some people believe confidence means certainty. They imagine confident people know exactly what to do. But many mature decisions do not contain certainty. They contain probabilities, trade-offs, incomplete information, hope, risk. Lucas discovered this while considering whether to accept an opportunity in another city. He wanted to know whether moving was the right decision. He researched the job, schools, housing, commute, finances, neighborhoods, career prospects. He discussed the move with his family. All of this was useful. Eventually, however, he reached a limit. The future was unavailable for inspection. Would the job remain satisfying? Would the children adjust? Would they make friends? Would they regret leaving? No spreadsheet could answer these questions completely. This is where confidence becomes something different from certainty. Confidence says, I have thought carefully, and I trust myself to respond to what unfolds. Lucas accepted the opportunity. Some parts were harder than expected. His children initially struggled. The commute was frustrating. They missed familiar people. Other things worked better. The role suited him. The family built new friendships. Years later, Lucas did not describe the move as obviously perfect. He described it as a decision they learned to make work. This is a powerful idea. We sometimes judge decisions only by outcomes. If something works, we assume the decision was good. If it fails, we assume the decision was bad. But responsible decisions are made using the information available at the time. Good decisions can produce difficult outcomes. Poor decisions can occasionally produce lucky ones. Confidence requires accepting that life contains uncertainty beyond our control. You can prepare carefully, act wisely, still encounter surprise. The deeper question becomes, do I trust myself to deal with the unexpected? Look backward over your life. There were situations you could not have predicted, problems you had never solved before, conversations you did not know how to handle, changes you did not request. Somehow you responded, perhaps imperfectly, perhaps slowly, perhaps with help, but you adapted. That history matters. It proves you do not need advanced knowledge of every future difficulty. You need the capacity to learn while living through it. That is why genuine confidence often sounds like humility. I don't know exactly what will happen. And then, but I will deal with what happens. This is much more realistic than pretending certainty exists. And when you become comfortable with that uncertainty, confidence gradually stops needing to prove itself. The strongest confidence often becomes the quietest. Early confidence can be performative. It wants to appear capable. It wants people to notice. It wants to win arguments. It wants recognition. This is understandable. When identity is still forming, external feedback matters deeply. But confidence often changes with maturity. People discover that being right all the time is impossible. They succeed and learn that success does not answer every insecurity. They fail and discover that failure does not erase their worth. They receive praise they did not fully deserve, criticism that was unfair. They realize how complicated human judgment can be. Eventually, some of the need to prove disappears. Claire noticed this change in herself over many years. When she was younger, disagreement felt threatening. If someone challenged her idea in a meeting, she defended it immediately. She wanted others to see her as competent. Later, after years of professional experience, a younger colleague questioned one of her recommendations. Claire listened. The colleague made a good point. "You may be right," Claire said. "Let's look at that." There is tremendous confidence in being able to say those words. Insecurity often needs to protect identity. Confidence can protect truth. If new information shows you are wrong, changing your mind does not reduce you. It improves your understanding. This is why genuine confidence and humility often grow together. A deeply confident person does not need to know everything. They can ask, they can learn, they can apologize, they can admit limits, they can give someone else credit, they can allow another person to shine, they can leave a conversation without winning. They can say, "I don't know. I was wrong. I need help. I changed my mind." These statements appear vulnerable, but they require security. When confidence becomes quiet, it is less concerned with managing impressions. It becomes concerned with living in alignment. Am I acting according to my values? Am I treating people well? Am I learning? Am I keeping my promises? Am I taking responsibility? Am I becoming someone I respect? This is the confidence nobody can give you because nobody else can answer those questions on your behalf. Closing message. Perhaps confidence is not something you need to find. Perhaps it is something you need to notice being built. Every day offers small opportunities to create it. Not through dramatic acts, through ordinary ones. You say you will do something, and you do it. A small piece of self-trust is built. You make a mistake and choose to learn rather than attack yourself. Confidence is built. You hear criticism and separate what is useful from what is merely opinion. Confidence is built. You say no to something that violates an important boundary. Confidence is built. You enter a room nervous and speak anyway. Confidence is built. You ask a question without apologizing for not knowing. Confidence is built. You see someone else's success and allow it to inspire you rather than diminish you. Confidence is built. You experience rejection and decide that disappointment will not become identity. Confidence is built. You fail and return. Confidence is built. You admit that you need help. Confidence is built. You allow yourself to be a beginner. Confidence is built. You make a decision without universal approval because it aligns with your values. Confidence is built. You face uncertainty and remind yourself that you do not need to know everything in advance. Confidence is built. None of these moments may feel extraordinary. That is why people sometimes miss what is happening. They expect confidence to arrive as a feeling, something dramatic. A morning when fear disappears, a moment when self-doubt finally becomes silent. But confidence may never arrive like that. It may arrive as memory. The memory of yourself doing hard things. The memory of surviving embarrassment. The memory of recovering from disappointment. The memory of learning. The memory of changing. The memory of beginning again. These memories accumulate quietly. Until one day, you face something difficult and notice that your first thought has changed. Years ago, it may have been, "What if I can't handle this?" Now perhaps it becomes, "This may be difficult, but I will figure out what to do." That is confidence, not certainty. Trust. There will still be situations that shake you. Confidence is not permanent emotional armor. Life can surprise anyone. A rejection may hurt more than expected. A failure may temporarily reduce your belief in yourself. A major change may leave you confused. You may have weeks where you feel less capable than usual. This does not erase what you have built. A confident person can have an insecure day. A resilient person can feel discouraged. A strong person can need support. Confidence is not the absence of fluctuation. It is having somewhere inside yourself to return. And when you return, perhaps you will remember something important. You are never required to become fearless. You are required only to become less controlled by fear. You are never required to know everything. You are required to remain willing to learn. You are never required to succeed every time. You are required to discover that failure did not end the story. You are never required to stop caring what others think. You are required to stop allowing their opinions to become the final authority over your life. You are never required to become louder. You are required to become more truthful. You are never required to eliminate uncertainty. You are required to trust yourself inside it. This is why external validation can never fully create confidence. People can encourage you. They can remind you of what you have forgotten. They can help you recognize strengths. They can offer opportunities. They can believe in you during periods when you struggle to believe in yourself. These gifts matter. Treasure them, but understand their limits. Someone else's belief can support you. It cannot replace your own relationship with yourself. At some point, you must become a witness to your own life. You must notice the moments you showed courage. Notice how much you have learned. Notice what once frightened you that now feels ordinary. Notice the responsibilities you handle today that a younger version of you may have found overwhelming. Notice the mistakes that did not destroy you. Notice the rejection you eventually moved beyond. Notice the days you continued without applause. There is evidence everywhere. Perhaps you simply have not been counting it, and perhaps that is the final lesson. Confidence does not always come from becoming a completely different person. Sometimes it comes from seeing yourself more accurately. You are not only the mistakes, you are also the corrections. You are not only the fear. You are also the times you acted while afraid. You are not only the failures, you are also the recoveries. You are not only the uncertainty, you are also the choices you made without guarantees. You are not only the person who once doubted, you are also the person who kept learning. So when the next difficult moment arrives, do not ask yourself to become someone fearless. Ask for something simpler. Stay, listen, think, take the next useful step. Maybe your voice will shake. Speak. Maybe you will not know the answer. Say so. Maybe you will make a mistake. Correct it. Maybe someone will disagree. Listen without immediately abandoning your position. Maybe the attempt will fail. Learn. Maybe the path will change. Adapt, and afterward, remember what happened. You remained. That becomes evidence. The evidence becomes self-trust. Self-trust becomes confidence. And over years, those small acts form something nobody could ever have handed you fully formed. A confidence that does not depend on winning every room. A confidence that does not collapse every time someone says no. A confidence that does not require pretending you have no fear. A confidence that survives imperfection. A confidence capable of learning. A confidence capable of changing. A confidence strong enough to be quiet. The confidence that says, I may not know exactly what is coming. I may not always feel ready. I may not always succeed. But I trust myself enough to meet the next moment. And perhaps that is the confidence worth building. Not the confidence people see, the confidence you carry when nobody is watching. The confidence nobody can give you.